everyone. Welcome to Switchblade Sisters Social Club, the true crime podcast where two friends exploit their worst fears for your entertainment.
You're welcome.
I'm Dee, a writer and podcaster.
And I'm Isla from Criminally Good Books, a true crime and crime fiction bookshop in York.
Follow us on all the socials.
Except for X, obviously.
Or have a look at our website, switchbladesisterssocialclub.com.
Check them out for all our latest episodes, events, deals, and other weird stuff.
Listeners' discretion advised. Hi!
Hello, you.
This is episode 11. That means we're halfway through the season.
Oh my God.
It goes so fast, doesn't it?
It does, and I'm so enjoying it. I'm so enjoying the research.
We've had lots of people say it's been the best season yet.
Is that just all of our relatives?
Yes, all of our friends, immediate friends, and people that don't like my sister. Joking.
Sorry, Rhonda.
Sorry. So we have got some fun events coming up through the bookshop. Do you want to talk about them?
Yeah, we do. We've got Janice Hallett, who you first introduced me to, Dee. Janice Hallett in The Appeal, which is just amazing. It's so
such
clever.
A good book. I know we've talked about it before in this podcast, but the entire book is written in the form of text messages and emails.
Exactly. It's
bonkers. Just so cleverly done. It's such a book of the age, you know?
Yeah.
And it's twisted as fuck.
Exactly. And it's so good. And her latest one, The Killer Question, is out in September. And we're doing an event with her shortly after publication date. And we're doing it on the 15th of September. So the tickets are just £8 and you get the money off the book. You get ticket price off the book and you get to chat to Janice. And it's just going to be super fun.
Your events are always so intimate and lovely. So, like, you actually get to meet the author and hang out with the author, which is just so lovely.
You went to the last one. You went to the last one.
With Laura Shepherd-Robinson. It was so good. And it's in such a lovely venue, that one.
It's the same venue, Merchant Adventurers Hall.
So cool. Such a cool, like, old-timey building in York, which is awesome. You've got another one coming up soon after that. You've got so many events.
I know. We've got Mike Craven, so M.W. Craven, and he's actually just been commissioned, if that's the right word, by like the James Bond franchise people to write a James Bond children's book as well. But that's not what we're doing on that. So that's on the 23rd, 24th of September, we've got Mike Craven. But that event is for The Final Vow, which is his latest.
Sorry. It's because my dad called me.
Oh. Do you want to speak to him?
Hi, Pops. You're on.
You're live. Hi.
You're on the podcast.
I'm not watching it now. I will in the future. So I will leave you in peace, Habibti.
We're leaving this in. Say hi to our listeners, Pops.
You made a wonderful choice in following that podcast. Both.
Thanks, Pop. Speak to you later. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Papa Safie.
Sorry,
I was wondering what was going on. It's because my phone was connected to my headphones as well, and it was Papa Safie. What a joker. He never listens.
I love Papa Safs.
All right, let's get back to business.
Where were we?
How about telling us about Mick Herron?
Yeah, so we've got Mick Herron on the 14th of October, and I'm so excited. And for people that don't know, Mick Herron wrote the Slow Horses series that's on TV with Gary Oldman. So we're super excited that we've got him.
Goodness, I still haven't seen it, but it's supposed to be amazing.
Oh my gosh, we're just rewatching the last few series because the new series is out, I think, the second week in September. So we're rewatching them all, and they are absolutely phenomenal. Like, so good.
Cool, can't wait. Also, I just want to say, we always talk about your bookshop. It's in York. Not everyone is in York, though. But
sadly, not everyone in the world lives here.
Let's get all our sexy listeners to move to York. But you have an online bookshop through bookseller.org, isn't it?
It's bookshop.org, and it's really good. It's a competitor to Amazon. It's just another alternative where people can still buy amazing books but not go to Amazon, and actually support independent bookshops, not billionaires. So bookshop.org supports independent bookshops around the UK. So you can go on there. We've got a page, Criminally Good Books. You look up the bookshop that you want to support. You then just look at any book that you want. So every single book that's in print in the UK is on there. So all you do is like fill your basket with all the lovely books that you want. If you spend over a certain amount, you get free delivery. You choose the bookshop that you want to support. So it could be Criminally Good Books. It can be any other bookshop in the UK.
But it should be Criminally Good.
It should be us.
Come on. But you also, because you've got like a shop front on it, you have like your lists and so forth that your recommended books and whatever. And then you have on there a list related to the podcast with all of the books that we have mentioned on the podcast.
Absolutely.
Any books that are kind of related to the subject. So if you do listen to an episode and you're like fascinated, you want to read the books we talk about, you want to do a deeper dive, that's the place to start. You don't have to be in New York. Although I cannot recommend enough going to your bookshop, because if you're listening to this podcast, it's probably going to be one of your happy places.
Yeah. And like Dee says, if you can't come to York, you can experience the bookshop, because we've got all of the booksellers. So myself and Megan and Kat and Amy and, Freya, if you go on there, it's got our individual personal recommendations and things that we're reading, as well as Switchblade Sisters. So you can just see everything that we've read and that we recommend. And
love it. Love it.
It's great.
Also, I'm really excited because this weekend I'm going to Scotland for the Beyond Borders Festival, which is in Peebles. Cute name. And it's at this like grand stately home called Traquair or something. I don't know. I'm going with my dad.
Papa Safs.
Yeah, Papa Safs, who just joined us on the podcast, very coincidentally. He's doing a talk on Palestine, and I'm organizing a couple of events, a couple of screenings of the films from the charity that I work with, et cetera, et cetera. But Jeremy Corbyn's going to be there. So
Corbyn and Nicola Sturgeon.
Yeah, exactly. She's going to be there. We saw her at Harrogate. So yeah, I'm just really excited because, there's a whole bunch of other just fantastic people. William Dalrymple, who's written a book on Palestine as well, but also on India, I think is one of his specialisms.
Is Vinnie Feen there? Sir Vincent?
Yes, Sir Vincent Feen, who's former Consul General of Jerusalem, who I work with the Britain-Palestine Project.
Hi, Vinnie Feen.
Vinnie Feen. It's just going to be amazing. I'm really excited because it's a festival that covers a whole bunch of different sort of, I guess, mainly conflict zones, but talking about the politics, the history, also a lot of the culture. So there's going to be a Dubke, Palestinian Dubke dance group. There's going to be
amazing
food. And so it's just going to be really nice, I think, to sort of go there and be around people that kind of get it and want to be supportive and are living it, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be super busy, but I'm hoping I can also go and visit some of the other talks, the non-Palestine related talks, because they look like they just have a bunch of amazing stuff.
It's going to be so much fun.
But obviously going to fangirl massively with Jeremy Corbyn.
Absolutely. Him and his bicycle clips are just legendary.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. So I think we should get going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Record this episode. So it's your turn to present.
Are you sure it's mine? Okay.
Yeah. Can you imagine? We've already had to delay this a couple of times because Isla did the thing where she went down the rabbit hole. So this one should be
finished.
I was going to say super interesting, but hopefully also finished. So
I don't think this one's ever going to be finished, and you'll see why.
That's the problem, isn't it? It's like, at what point do you stop with some of these cases? They're just so bonkers and so there's so many strains to it that you could just write whole books on just one single element of them. So
I know, right?
We will definitely be giving you sources in the show notes at the end so that you can go down your own rabbit holes if you feel like Isla in her in-depth research has not covered some things enough.
Can I tell you, Dee, this one, I will eventually tell you what it's about, but I was still researching at 5 o'clock in the morning, like a couple of nights ago, because I just found it so interesting. It didn't feel like a chore. It felt like I need to know more about this. And it was enjoyable doing it. And then I was like so tired the next day.
Yeah. Oh, well, hopefully that means other people find it interesting too. So tell me. I can't wait. I've waited so long. I need to know.
I know. Are you ready? Definitely ready. Okay, cool. So I'm going to give you some clues. So don't guess it until you've got all the clues. So remember my last episode, The Brides in the Bath, was about one of the first trials where similar fact evidence was used to secure the conviction of George Smith. So that was where women died in a bathtub, all of them were married to one man, and the evidence of these crimes was used to prove a pattern of behavior, okay, to secure the conviction. Well, today's episode is also a world first, and it was the first time a criminal was captured using wireless telegraphy. So wireless telegraphy is the transmission of text messages using electromagnetic waves instead of like physical cables.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so more clues. Think music hall performer, illegal medical procedures, an arrest almost 6,000 kilometers from the scene of the crime. Any idea?
No.
As soon as I say the name, you're going to know straight away. I'm going to tell you about Hawley Harvey Crippen, Dr. Crippen.
Dr. Crippen! Oh my
Yeah.
God, I can't wait.
His wife's, his mistress, and his attempt to escape justice. Do you know the story, Dee? Do you know the story? Because I knew a bit of it, but not until I really went into it.
I know it. So I knew the name. The most I learned from it was because at Harrogate, I went to go and listen to, I'm sure you're going to tell me her name because I can't remember it. And you gave me a gorgeous book written by her, the one who wrote Five.
Yep. Hawley Rivenhold.
There you
Yep.
go. So
There we are.
I'm sure you're going to talk about this. She wrote an amazing book. Yes. She wrote an amazing book on the 5 victims of Jack the Ripper, very victim focused, almost hardly mentions Jack the Ripper at all. It's a beautiful book.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So let's go through my sources. So my sources are, just as you've said, Dee. So Story of a Murder by Hawley Rivenhold, and it is an amazing book. It does talk about Dr. Crippen, obviously, but it talks about the women in his lives and their stories. And they're not all saints, you know, these women, but it talks about them and gives them, you know, a sort of a place in history rather than just focusing on the murder and kind of him, really. So that's the first one. And then the second book is one that I've discussed before, is Scotland Yard, A Bloody History by Simon Reid, which is a really great book, absolutely fantastic. And the other sources are Murderpedia and just various internet searches. So, shall we?
Yes, I can't wait.
Okay, so this is one of the most notorious cases in British criminal history. And like I said, much like the Brides in the Bath episode, it gripped Edwardian London. So we're talking about like 1910 again. It also altered the public's relationship with crime reporting and forensic science. And I'll go into why this was the case shortly. Okay, let's travel back to 1910 when the disappearance of a couple would spark headlines that would become the centre of a manhunt on both sides of the Atlantic. So I'm going to start with the Ladies' Guild. Now, we've got experience of a Ladies' Guild, haven't we, Dee? So tell me,
Oh, yes.
Tell me about our Ladies' Guild and how fantastic they are.
Yes. So we used to work for St. John Eye Hospital, which was the original branch of St. John that many people in this country know from St. John Ambulance, that was originally in the Holy Land. And it was the Knights of St. John, quite crusadery, but let's get past that for now and the problems with that. But they actually were the knights that went to the Holy Land. They were Hospitaller Knights, so they set up a hospital there. They had like a much nicer ethos than a lot of the Crusaders, let's say, because they set up their hospital for locals as well, and respected the locals so much that they even had like provided halal food for the Muslims and so forth, because their belief was that Jesus could be reincarnated on earth in any form and anyone could be Jesus, so everyone should be treated the same. That's a little bit bonkers to me, but I like the idea of treating everyone with the same amount of respect. So we went with it, right? And then when they got evicted from the Holy Land in various times, they ended up all over the world, back in their home countries. They controlled Malta for a while. They were in Rhodes. I was in Slovenia. There's an area in northeast Slovenia called Jerusalem because some of the knights ended up there. But the St. John Knights, everywhere they went, they decided to continue with their work. And so they set up healthcare charities in their home countries or wherever they landed. And that's why we have St. John Ambulance here, why we have St. John Ambulance in hospices and hospitals and first aid training in many different countries around the world, lots of mother and baby programs in Africa and so forth.
Exactly.
The Ladies Guild was the branch of St. John that women got involved in. And my gran and my aunt and stuff in Jerusalem used to be involved in this. And they, with regards to St. John, used to embroider the logos and stuff on the uniforms, on the beddings and so forth. And then the branch of the Ladies Guild here in the UK, it's not called the Ladies Guild anymore because I think at the moment no, they have one man. So they're just called the Guild, but they were originally the Ladies Guild.
Yeah.
They would do fundraising events for the charity. So it's often a Ladies Guild is normally a branch for the women to do with either some kind of group of their men, and the women are kind of in this very supportive role, doing the tasks that a woman can do. And normally it would be like women of society who, you know, have their charities that they help and they support, because that's what they were expected to do. But in a ladylike. Is that what your Ladies Guild is?
Yes, and your example, it's a phenomenal example, and it just makes me realize how much I love the Ladies Guild at St. John. They were just so lovely, or they are still so lovely. So it's pretty much exactly the same. But I think I would also describe the Ladies Guild at St. John very similar to this Ladies Guild that I'm about to discuss. So like formidable, wonderful women, determined, hardworking, amazing fundraisers, well-connected, keepers of like knowledge and history. Do you remember when we joined and it's like sitting around the table going, who are these people? As in, we don't know the names of these people. Who's this person's partner? And they would just like tell you all this amazing history. And they were great at fundraising. They could bring people to events. So this is very much what the ladies of the Music Hall Guild, okay, we're just going to call them the Ladies Guild. And that's what these women did. I think if it wasn't for the Ladies Guild in this story would be very different and might not exist.
Please tell me they're responsible for solving the crime.
They are definitely responsible for kickstarting it, and they are responsible for a conviction. And this is why people's perception of the police and reporting changed, because these ladies left no stone unturned and just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing the police until they were heard.
Nice. Girl power. Yes.
So here we go. So the Music Hall Ladies Guild at the time, they were advocates for improved working conditions for performers, and they were trying to secure pensions for stage performers as well. So, and they fundraised, and they're a really absolutely fantastic group of women at the time, in like the late 1800s, early 1900s.
That's super progressive, because although it was very much expected that if you were of society, you would go to shows, the performers were considered basically sex workers, weren't they? They
didn't, I mean, women didn't have the vote at this point. They didn't have anything to fall back on. If they were ill, they got no payment.
Yeah.
For many of them, it was a life of poverty if they got sick. And you know what it's like if you're on stage. Well, I don't know if you know what it's like being on stage, but doing our research, we know that you have a certain value in society if you're good looking, if your body works in a certain way. And if you're on stage as a performer and you start to lose your looks, you start to, maybe you get overweight and you can't do things as you used to, you know, you don't have a pension to fall back on. If you're not married and let's say your partner doesn't have a lot of money, like there's nothing for you. So it's better working conditions, pensions, sick funds. That's the kind of thing that these ladies were like really pushing for. So they're absolutely phenomenal women. Okay, really strong women at the time. Into the Ladies Guild, into Scotland Yard. On the 30th of June, 1910, Mr. and Mrs. Nash walked into Scotland Yard to raise concerns about the disappearance of their friend, Mrs. Cora Crippen. She was an aspiring operatic singer and music hall performer. I don't know if you remember the name Belle Elmore, but I did before I started the research. But her married name is Cora Crippen. Her stage name is Belle Elmore. I'll tell you more about Cora Belle's background in a bit, but I'm just setting the scene about, you know, around the disappearance. So Mrs. Lillian Nash of the Guild was an American singer, and her husband John was her manager. They weren't the first to go to the police with their concerns over Cora's disappearance. I think this is hilarious, but the first person to go to the police was a strong woman called Kate Williams, known as Volcana.
Oh, I love
was her
Volcana.
stage name, Volcana. She spoke to the police originally about Cora's disappearance, but it wasn't taken seriously. At that time, like these stage performances are very like bohemian and like just kind of like, you
She
know,
probably went on a trip or on tour.
exactly, and just, she disappeared and they're like, whatever. However, the Nashys were personal friends of the superintendent at Scotland Yard. So he's like, okay, I'm going to I'm going to pay attention to this. And he then brought in Chief Inspector Walter Dew, DEW, to investigate. And Dew is our case crush, okay?
Okay, good to know.
So Walter Dew, we love him.
Okay, good.
With a passion, okay? So they told you that Cora was a much loved member of the guild, and she was its treasurer, and she was the wife of a Dr. Crippen, who was a doctor of homeopathy.
Not a real doctor.
Pseudoscience, guys, pseudoscience. Let's just say that.
I don't know enough about it, but I
don't know,
read an article about how a lot of these homeopathic remedies have like the essence of this and that and the other in such small amounts that there's not actually any active ingredient. And there's a time and a place for placebo effect type things. I don't know.
Sometimes you just need hardcore medicine. I'm sure it works for some people. Yeah. But in this case, he's a crackpot. Let me just say, and I'm not going to go into all the stuff that he thought existed because that is another episode. We could have a whole episode.
He's not going to be the one to convince me of homeopathy.
No, or in any way, shape, or form, any medical procedure. Let's just say that. Cora was last seen by friends 6 months previously. Ooh. 6 months, okay, at a dinner party on the 31st of January that was hosted by her and her husband. Her and her husband hosted a party. 6 months later, she's still missing. That was the last time she was seen at this dinner party. They go on to tell Dew of their suspicions over the previous 6 months. So here we go. On the 2nd of February, there was a Music Hall Ladies Guild meeting. And you know how, like, our Ladies Guild meetings, they would turn up, religiously. If anyone was not there, it obviously would be suspicious. So these meetings happened every Wednesday. And you can imagine, every Wednesday they turn up, someone organises snacks, they bring things, it's a bit of a social.
Every Wednesday?
Every Wednesday. They were dedicated every Wednesday. So every Wednesday they had Ladies Guild meeting, but Mrs. Crippen didn't turn up, which was very unusual, as she'd attended every single meeting for the last 2 years. At the meeting, 2 letters were presented to the guild by Dr. Crippen's secretary, Ethel Le Neve. Now, it's not suspicious that Ethel turned up to these meetings because actually the guild had their meetings in the same building that Dr. Crippen had his offices at Albion House in Oxford Street. So it wasn't unusual that they were in the same building. But anyway, Ethel Le Neve, who's the secretary, turns up with 2 letters, one to the secretary of the guild, Mrs. Melinda May, and the second was like more generally to the committee. The first letter, dated that day, was supposedly Cora's resignation from the guild. Would you like me to read this resignation letter? I hear you say yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is Cora's resignation. Dear Miss May, illness of a near relative has called me to America on a few hours' notice. So I must ask you to bring my resignation as treasurer before the meeting today so that a new treasurer can be elected at once. You will appreciate my haste when I tell you that I have not been to bed all night for packing and getting ready to go. I shall hope to see you again in a few months, but cannot spare a moment to call you before I go. I wish you everything nice until I return to London again. Now goodbye, with love hastily, yours, Belle Elmore. So first of all, and I don't know either way, and I couldn't find anything, but if your actual name is Cora and you've known these women for over 2 years, why would you sign off Belle Elmore, your stage name? Just curious.
Yeah.
So that's obviously unusual. Now, Mrs. May, the secretary, was then interviewed by Chief Inspector Dew about the letter later on. And she said, I knew Mrs. Crippen's writing, but I could not say in whose hand that letter was in. Now, you can imagine, like, Cora was the treasurer, Melinda May was the secretary. They're inevitably going to see each other's handwriting and become familiar with it. Like, you and I knew each other's handwriting at St. John. Like, checks, writing things to the
Little
guild,
notes on your notepad during
little
the
love
day.
notes to each other, all that kind of thing, covering my desk and all sorts of crap.
Yeah. So what, sorry, was she saying she didn't recognize the handwriting or she couldn't confirm if it was Cora?
Oh, she's basically saying it wasn't Cora's. She
Yeah,
didn't know
okay.
whose handwriting it was, but it wasn't Cora's handwriting. So it wasn't typed, it was written and it wasn't hers. So obviously the guild were immediately suspicious by the fact that she'd just gone, suspicious by the letters. And they'd been friends for like a significant period of time. So, I'd be suspicious if you went off to the States in a like moment's notice and like I know we've got mobile phones and everything now,
No, I
but you'd
know,
be
but
suspicious if someone just upped and left, especially if it's your friend of 2 years.
yeah, and you'd be like, I've never heard of a relative in the States, let alone one that you would abandon your life at a moment's notice for. You would have thought they'd know about this relative. Like,
Yeah. I mean, Cora does have relatives in the States, but it's just all very, very suspicious. So now at this point, although they are suspicious, they didn't do anything. But then on the 20th of February, Dr. Crippen attended a ball for the Guild. It was actually the Music Hall Benevolent Fund, which is effectively something that the Guild had organised to raise money. And Cora was involved in this fund and this ball. He attended it with his much younger secretary, Ethel Le Neve. She was 27 and he was 47. But that's not even the thing that raised the most eyebrows. It was the fact that Ethel turned up wearing one of Cora's favourite brooches.
ugh. I'm guessing, obviously, this story was that he didn't go to the States, so they weren't necessarily surprised to see him.
He didn't go to the States. So Ethel just come downstairs and went, oh, by the way, here's a letter from Cora. Like she's gone to America to look after a relative. Like he's still there. They read the letter, obviously suspicious. He doesn't go anywhere. He stays where he is. He decides to go to this charity do with his secretary, and the secretary's wearing one of Cora's favourite brooches.
If he was just attending that ball, that to me would seem sweet. Like he's supporting his wife's endeavors, even though she's not there, going in her name. But yes, the fact that he's decided to bring his young secretary and that she's wearing.
But he didn't even just turn up with her. She was on his arm. So lots of the things I've read is he literally turned up and they were almost seemed to be like a couple. And I know that like maybe back in the day that if you were a woman, you wouldn't turn up to something on your own and like you might be in the arm of a guy, but everything I've read is definitely like they were a couple.
Not a married man. In the time, that would have been scandalous. Yeah.
Completely. And she's turned up with this brooch that the guild ladies said. So Cora really loved her jewelry and she really loved like her brooches and everything. And for her to turn up with, for Ethel to turn up wearing this one, obviously was, raised eyebrows. Cora's known to have had lots of jewelry bought for her by Dr. Crippen. He seemed to actually lavish her with jewelry, whether he was forced to or not, whether she's like, I want this, give it to me, or he's like, I want to buy you this, whatever. The guild ladies did say that he would buy her lots of jewelry. She loved her clothes. She would have beautiful items of clothing. He was buying feathers like for hats and stuff, and she had stage outfits. And although she did earn her own money, he was buying all this kind of stuff.
And I can understand because this secretary would obviously be, let's say, a different social class to Crippen, that he might, if he was bringing her to a thing, that he might help her with her outfit so that she fits in.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
But it's still weird that he invited her in the first place. And that he's walked in with her on the arm,
Yeah, it would have been better to go, I'm supporting my wife, I'm here, this is an amazing night, thanks everyone, type thing. But that's not what he did. That's not what he did. At the event, Crippen was asked by several people about Cora, and he kept saying, and he maintained that she'd gone to America on a personal matter. Cora's friends told Chief Inspector Dew, because remember, they're still at Scotland Yard in this room talking about the last 6 months. They said that they were then further shocked and very upset on the 26th of March, the next month, when they read Cora's obituary in the theatrical paper, The Era. announcing that Cora had died of pneumonia in California. So the Nashys told the police that Dr. Crippen was evasive when they asked him about this, and he told them that she died in Los Angeles. Now, this woman is fucking amazing. So Mrs. Nash was a singer whose stage name was Lil Hawthorne. And she was like quite well known at the time. She was really beautiful, really well known. And she was touring at the end of March, the music halls in North America at the end of March, and her husband was there. So what did they do? They went to the LAPD offices and inquired if someone called Cora Crippen or Belle Elmore had died in the city, and they were told no one by that name has died ever in this city. So they then came back home and they confronted Crippen, and he maintained the same story. I mean, they said, we've made inquiries and she's not dead. She's not died there. And he's like, yep, she is. I've been told. And just dismissed them. And this is when they're like, yeah, we're going to the place. So on that information, Chief Inspector Dew agreed to make some inquiries. So here are the inquiries. I mean, you can imagine these women have pushed and pushed and pushed. The fact that they were in America and they went to see the LAPD as well. It's just great, isn't it?
What legends?
What legends? So Melinda May, the secretary of the Guild, she was a retired singer and dancer. And she said that Crippen, so when she was interviewed by Dew, she said that Dr. Crippen had told her that Cora was in America in a hard-to-reach place right up in the hills of California. I smell bullshit because that is really convenient, right? Right up in the hills. And bear in mind, we're not talking about the dark ages here. You can still get in contact with people. Okay?
I mean, there were phones at this point.
Exactly. So you're right up in the hills of California. Can't speak to anyone, supposedly. She said, I saw Dr. Crippen several times during the month of March. I remember seeing him on Wednesday, March the 23rd, when he told me that Mrs. Crippen was very ill indeed, and he was waiting for the worst news. So prior to this, Crippen had said that Belle's relatives had written to him to say that she was very ill. So I use Belle and Cora, but same person. So they basically said that she was very ill and had problems with her lungs. So that's what he had
Why
said.
wasn't he going to the States? She dropped supposedly her whole life to go and look after a sick relative. He's got similar news about his sick wife, supposedly.
Exactly. But he then said, and maybe this is why he said this, because maybe he felt like he'd be under pressure to go and see her. He then said that Cora wrote to him saying that she wasn't that ill and her relatives were making it up and making it to be worse than it was.
Just all sounds really weird.
Dodgy, right? Really dodgy. And I remember George Smith in The Brides in the Bath, how he was laying the foundations for his wife's deaths by making them think that they were suffering from headaches, blacking out, and making them go to see doctors. Well, I think Crippen's he's paving the way for Cora's death by saying that she's ill. And I think it's very suspicious that she was able to write to Crippen and not her friends of over 2 years.
Because even if she had to rush off and she didn't have a chance before she went, she would have probably gone by boat, had loads of time to write letters. I don't know. Something when she got there, I'm so sorry about my hasty retreat.
Well, exactly. And also the other thing is that she said in her letter, the resignation letter, that she hopes to see them again in London. And it was very much a letter, although she didn't say, I will write to you. It was very much a letter that she'd left the door open to contact them. And she obviously hasn't. So very obviously suspicious. Now, on the same day that Crippen told Melinda, the secretary of the Guild, that Cora was very ill, he also bumped into one of Cora's other friends. Her name is Clara Martinetti. I love all these names. And she's a retired mime artist. I just love the fact that these women, there were operatic singers, actors, mime artists. It's just really interesting, very bohemian. And he told Clara that Belle was it's the same day, very dangerously ill and not expected to live much longer. He said that if she did pass away, he would go to France for a week for a change of air. So he's building this up. We know something's going to happen. The next day, he wired Clara to say, unfortunately, Cora died at 6 p.m. the day before, and that he was now going away for a week to France. So these women want answers. So Clara confronts Crippen on his return from France and he said that she died in LA and she was immediately cremated. So can you imagine making no effort to go to your wife's funeral, making no effort to reach out to her friends to say, oh, by the way, there's a few. So she died in that 2-week period that he was in France. Like, he wasn't visiting his wife. He'd gone for a change of air and immediately had her cremated, supposedly. So end of story, he hopes. Shortly after the wife's death, Ethel Le Neve, his secretary, started wearing Cora's clothes, really expensive clothes. Because this is like a secretary who's in her 20s and she's suddenly got all of this dead woman's clothes. First of all, I'd be creeped out by that. But then I don't know if you're a secretary and you see this woman having this extravagant life, if you're quite happy to take all her stuff. Who knows? Anyway.
It's weird that she wants to do that for her employer's dead wife. And it's weird of him to be okay with it.
Totally weird. Right. Shall I give you some background into Cora? So we've stopped there. Cora's dead. But let's talk about her and how interesting a woman she was. So there's a few names in here, so it might get confusing. But Cora Crippen was born, Kunigunde was her name, Kunigunde Makamotsky in 1873 in Brooklyn, USA. Her parents had immigrated to New York from Russian Poland, so Prussia. When she was 2, they changed her name to Concordia, as Kunigunde was too much for Americans to correctly pronounce. I think even Concordia for some Americans would be too much.
But I love it.
Concordia, it sounds really cool. Anyway, her mother became pregnant with another daughter, but before the child was born, sadly, Cora's father died. Her father, Joseph, died, leaving her mother with Cora, or Concordia, as a toddler, and then she was heavily pregnant. Her father's German friend, Frederick Messenger, agreed to marry the mother, and shortly after the wedding, her sister Teresa was born. I don't know how unusual that is, but Frederick, the stepfather, was a really fantastic stepfather to both the girls. So he was like a knight in shining armor type thing.
I know that there used to be the tradition that the best man or the brother, literally almost like godparents, was kind of saying, I'll look after your wife if you die. And if I'm single, that might possibly mean I marry them, because that was the way of protecting, in quotation marks, women who, single women, widowed women, didn't have very many rights or opportunities. And quite often their financial situation went down the shitter, right? Yeah, I mean, it's bizarre. But
it's bizarre for us to think about now. But actually, back then, maybe a lot of people would have preferred that. I mean, I can't imagine having a 2-year-old, not a lot of money coming in, being pregnant, your husband dying, and then your husband's best friend says, I'll step in and bring up the children. Yeah. Actually, like, good on him. I think there'd be a lot of people that would be doing it not for altruistic reasons, but in this case, it seems to be that he was an amazing stepfather to Concordia and then her younger sister, Teresa. And he seemed to be really generous when he was able to. So times were hard for them. There wasn't a lot of money around, but the girls were looked after. And Frederick said of Concordia, this is really sad, Frederick said of Concordia, Cora, I raised her as my own child and she was the best little girl I ever knew. From an early age, he encouraged her interest in performing, and he introduced her to music and singing, which was an integral part of German immigrant life. You know what it's like being Palestinian. You hold on to that heritage.
Your culture.
Hold on to, and like, I'm Scottish and I love the bagpipes and haggis, but it's all joking aside, it was a massive part of their culture, the singing and the music, and she was really encouraged to like throw herself into it, and she was really good at it. They said that she had a really great, singing voice for a little girl. According to her half-sister, Katie, so he did have another child, so her half-sister, Katie, she completed her schooling aged around 16, 17. And around the same time, her stepfather, Frederick, told her that he wasn't her biological dad. We don't know how she felt about this or how she reacted. But interestingly, at the same time, she changed her name from Concordia to Cora, and she changed her surname from Mersinger, his name, to Turner. So she became Cora Turner. And around 1891, she started working as a servant for a wealthy family in New York, the Lincoln family, that was made up of the father Charles, the wife Estelle, and their children Harry and Frederick, along with Charles's brother James. So she's living in this very privileged place in New York. However, by February the following year, Charles, the husband, had declared his wife insane, put her in asylum, sent the children away to be educated and brought up somewhere else. And guess what?
Married Cora?
He didn't marry her, but he got her pregnant, and she was pregnant with a child. So he'd no intention of marrying her.
Yeah.
So, no, we don't know what happened there, but you've got a young girl brought into the house of a very wealthy man who then gets her pregnant. And obviously there can be two sides to the story, but she's 17, and she's pregnant. She's unmarried. He is married. He is the person in control here. He had a lot of money, so he went to use the discreet services of a homeopathic doctor called George Clinton Jeffrey. So it was very common to go to these medical people to have abortions, basically. Now, George Clinton Jeffrey's new assistant was a Dr. Hawley Harvey Crippen. This new assistant, Dr. Crippen, had recently suffered the bereavement of his first wife, who had suffered a stroke in her early 30s whilst pregnant with their second child. Get back to that one. Yeah, I'm looking at your face. You know, there's like...
I hate all of this.
All of this, yeah, okay. Now, in New York at the time, you know what it's like at the moment in America? All
now, yeah.
I know, now, anti-abortion laws. And I'm not saying it was any worse now or even better now, but it was bad then, and it's starting to be worse again now, isn't it? Women not having control of their bodies. But in America, particularly in New York State at the time, anti-abortion laws are some of the strictest in the country. You could be punished for up to 20 years in prison by performing an abortion. They were illegal. But despite this, for the right amount of money...
Always.
Yep. People would perform backstreet abortions. Not even backstreet, actually in proper doctors' surgeries. But for the proper professional ones with experienced doctors, you'd be charged $150 to $200. In today's money, that's up to $7,000. So can you imagine, Cora's pregnant, she's 17. Where's she going to get $7,000?
From the very rich man who put her in that position, I hope.
Exactly. So Cora underwent an abortion, or a delicate procedure, as it was called then. And pretty much almost immediately, Dr. Crippen, the assistant, started to court her.
That feels unprofessional.
Very unprofessional. So you've got a medical professional and a patient, and he starts to date her. He takes her to Coney Island, which was really popular at the time amongst courting couples. He took her to the seaside park walks. Now, it seems that the Charles Lincoln, the very wealthy guy that she was living with, he wants to move away and take her with him. But Dr. Crippen insisted that he married her. And she then decides she chooses Dr. Crippen over the wealthy guy that got her pregnant. So in 1892, on the 1st of September, just 2 days before her 19th birthday, in New Jersey, she married Dr. Crippen. Now, they had very lax rules on marriage. He was married before. They wouldn't have been able to happen in other states, but they got legally married when she was 19. Now, Crippen had a son with his first wife. So you would have thought that he's now married to Cora. He would call for his son to come over. He didn't. He didn't want any children around him. He didn't like children. He was really interesting for someone that's involved in like gynecology and abortions. He didn't want children anywhere near him. He arranged for the child to be brought up by other family members. And Cora had actually expressed a fondness for children, and she wanted children, but she was forced to undergo a hysterectomy by Dr. Crippen. He forced her. He unnecessarily removed her ovaries in the winter of 1894 to 95. So he had said that she was suffering from painful menstrual periods, and that she'd a prolapsed uterus. And he advised her that the only way of sorting this was to have her ovaries, removed. And he admitted that when she had her ovaries removed, there was actually nothing wrong with them. So she then could no longer have kids.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's so much. And, he's got history with this. Her sister actually said that, and her mum said they had no idea why she had this operation. She'd never, ever complained of period cramp. She'd never, ever had any issues whatsoever. So now she can't have biological children, and she wanted children. So, okay, she did have that, abortion, and, she can, we can all choose what we want, particularly in this country.
That doesn't mean you don't want to have kids ever. It just means right now I can't do it. And in this era and in this time of my life and with that man, it's not possible.
Exactly. I don't want kids right now, but I might want them later. So in the years that have followed, Cora's procedure, like her body changed dramatically. It was likely to do with a change in metabolism and hormones. And, it happens to everyone over time. Your body's going to change. So she developed a rounder, fuller figure. She wrote to her stepsister Kate expressing her desire to have children and that Crippen had robbed her of that. She lived in a society where women were expected to have children, right? So she grew to resent the change inflicted on her. And by 1895, Crippen and Cora spent months apart from each other. She was pursuing her career as a singer, and he was developing his career as a homeopathic doctor. And he also worked for a company that developed like homeopathic patents and stuff. So he was doing his own thing, she was doing her own thing. However, he wants to pursue his career in London. In 1897, he moves to London, and Cora joins him a few months later. Her operatic career was not going well in the States, and she thought, I'll join him. He might have forced me to do this procedure. We might not be in the best place, but I'm going to go to London and pursue my music hall career there and, make a new start. And this is where she came up with the name Belle Elmore, her stage name. And Crippen, according to loads of Belle's friends, have said that he spent lots of money on her stage outfits. Who knows? Maybe he felt guilty. Honestly, don't know.
Maybe she was sort of blackmailing him.
Maybe. Exactly. Maybe. Who knows? But she is under, and this is really awful saying this because obviously I've not seen her perform. She loved what she was doing, but it doesn't sound like she was a particularly great performer, or there were other people that were better than her, and she just wasn't. She was kind of like middling, like she wasn't really making a name for herself. So would you like to see what Belle Elmore looks like?
Yeah. Oh, wow. That is a look. I love the outfit.
Yeah. So she's got a really a bodice, and then lots of lace. She's got a brooch. She's got these were actual feathers, so they're really expensive. So she had rings and feathers, and she was known to wear brooch upon brooch upon brooch, absolutely covered and dripping in kind of brooches and and all that kind of stuff. I
mean, she basically looks like she's dressed up in drag in that she's wearing a leotard, like a bodysuit, a huge headdress, like you said, with feathers, brooch in the front, lots of lace ruffles. And she looks really pretty, super cute.
She does. She does look super cute. So so she obviously looks super
fabulous.
Super fabulous. Super fabulous. So let's go back to Chief Inspector Dew. So he decides to investigate the disappearance of Cora. So he goes to 39 Hilldrop Crescent in London, where the Crippens lived. So this is like a 3-story townhouse that no longer exists, by the way. It's been removed and it's like a block of flats. But anyway, so he goes to 39 Hilldrop Crescent in London.
Where was it? What area?
I don't know. Should we look it up?
Mm-hmm.
You'll get there faster than me. London.
Holloway.
Holloway. Yes, that's right. I knew that. Holloway.
Camden Road, Holloway. So for those of you who are familiar with London, it's kind of central northy London area, basically.
Yeah. Detective Inspector Dew turns up at the house, and who should answer the door but Ethel Le Neve?
The secretary.
No, this is the office. She's at the house. And she opens the door and she says, really sorry, he's not here. He's at the office. He says to her, I want you to accompany me down to his office. I need to speak to both of you. I want to talk about his wife's disappearance and death. So they go down together, get to Dr. Crippen's office. Dr. Crippen then admits that he made up the whole story about his wife going to America and her death, that he put the obituary in the era theatrical paper because she had left him. He said that actually she had left him because she was having an affair with their lodger.
Oh, she was having an affair now, was she? Okay.
He was having an affair and went away with the lodger. Chief Inspector Dew actually said at the time it was a reasonable explanation. He said that he could see that Ethel and him were a couple. They didn't try and hide it. And Crippen admitted as much. And he said that they'd both had affairs. She had gone away, but he was a professional man and didn't want to admit to everyone that his wife was having an affair and had gone away. Okay, so he was trying to save face. At the time, Chief Inspector Dew was like satisfied with the explanation and he let them both go. However, he had a couple of questions. So he came back the next day, but he found that they had fled. Suspicious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they decide to search the house. They search it several times and they find nothing. But then on the fifth search, the fifth and final search, they've gone through all the bedrooms, all the rooms, they kept going back. The fifth search, they go to the basement and they find something. Shall I tell you what happens?
First of all, do they only go to the basement on the fifth sweep?
So the basement didn't look like it was much to begin with, but they spotted something on one of the searches and they decided to spend longer in the basement. So let me go to my little book of quotes. This is why it takes me so long, Dee, because I'm writing down everything.
I love your book of quotes. Go on.
Okay.
You look so serious. I love it.
I know, because I'm so interested, Dee, by this. It's just so interesting because these are actually quotes from the police officers and stuff at the time in like 1910. So in the basement, there was some discarded bits of coal, some tree trimmings, a discarded chandelier, random rubbish on a brick floor. Dew got on his hands and knees and jabbed at the floor with a poker that he found in the kitchen. I found that the poker went in somewhat easily between a couple of crevices of the bricks. So the bricks looked like they had been moved. And obviously at this point, they're wondering why they fled. And there's nothing in the house to say why. So they're desperately trying to find something. And then a couple of these bricks move. I managed to get one or two of them up, and then several come up pretty easily. I then produced a spade from the garden and dug the clay that was immediately under the bricks. After digging down to a depth of about 4 spadefuls, I came across what appeared to be human remains.
Cora.
I'm going to read on and I'm going to show you some pictures. So with 2 police officers, they dig down. And sorry, this is trigger warning, big trigger. I mean, I should have done that in the beginning.
Yeah, well, true crime podcast.
This is like human remains in detail here. The smell was so awful, it prompted the men to fortify themselves with drinks of brandy in the garden. So they had to keep drinking alcohol in the garden and kept going back in because the smell was so bad.
Sounds like an excuse, but anyway.
Sounds like an excuse for a piss up, yeah? Dew later recalled, at length I had discovered a clue to the poor creature who had vanished many months before, as though the earth had swallowed and opened up, as indeed it had. So what lay in the middle of the cellar was a large, gooey clump, a decomposed trunk, minus the arms, the legs, and the head. So they were not there, okay? It gets worse. In quotes, those particular organs which would have determined the sex of the body were missing. So there was no head, there was no limbs, there were no bones. All been removed. It was only her torso. Okay.
And presumably her genitals.
Exactly. Yep. So they found a torn strip of a woman's vest, some buttons, lace collar, etc., etc., etc. Okay, right. So that's that. Pretty grim. Now, do you remember Bernard Spilsbury?
Spilsbury? Yes, the forensics.
Pathologist, exactly. He was a forensic pathologist at St Mary's Hospital that convicted George Smith and reconstructed the drowning of the brides in the bath.
And he was suspicious because one of the wives died with her clutching the soap.
Exactly. Well remembered.
Yes.
Exactly. Now, he is a legend in this case as well. Now, he had a real interest in scar tissues at this time. So this is like 7 years before the brides in the bath. So he was really interested in scar tissues. And he was actually consulted because this torso had a scar tissue on it.
Spilsbury.
Let me show you a picture. It's not nice, so just bear with me, Dee.
So we actually have two case crushes.
Spilsbury and Dee, exactly.
One each.
One each. Tell me if you can see that.
Oh yeah, the basement.
So this is the basement, and you can see like they did do some serious kind of digging down there into the basement.
Ugh, it's giving me Fred and Rosemary West basement vibes.
Exactly. It's absolutely horrible, isn't it?
So basically, just to explain to our audio listeners, it was a black and white photo of a basement where they clearly, or a cellar if you prefer, where they clearly dug up the floor, and that's where they had found these remains.
So now this that I'm about to share is pretty grim. So this is definite trigger warning. So what I'm about to show you, Dee, is the actual skin and the scar that they found in the basement.
Oh my God. Okay. Am I ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay. It's gross because of what it is, but actually looking at it, you wouldn't guess what it is. So it's not as horrific as I thought.
So it's a piece of skin.
Clearly on some sort of, what is it called? Microscope slide.
There we are, slide.
Yeah. So it's one of those that says,
and it's
Crippen on it, and it says sear in skin. Scar and skin. Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
So they've given this to Spilsbury, our love.
Yeah, our love Spilsbury.
Presumably to find out what kind of operation it might be from or whatever. Amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And based on Cora's records, he says it is from her. It is because that's where she had her hysterectomy. It's her hysterectomy scar. And that's how they identify her. Now, many people could say, well, how do you know there's no hands, there's no head, like all the kind of stuff. Fragments of clothing that were found in the cellar were found to be hers. There was also some of his pajama clothing, as in Crippen's pajama clothing, were under the bricks. And actually, so let's say it was part of his trousers, and he actually had the top in his drawers in his bedroom, or the other way around. But some of his pajama clothing was there as well as some lace belonging to her.
So at the very least, it was recent.
Suspicious, yeah, suspicious. So,
recent and suspicious, yes.
Well, exactly. So Spilsbury's like, this is consistent with Cora's hysterectomy. I believe it to be her. So then let me just read a little bit to you. So basically, on examination, they revealed that all the bones had been removed, but the internal organs, the heart, the lungs, the lower 2.5 inches of the windpipe, the gullet, the liver, the kidney, the spleen, the stomach, and the pancreas all appeared healthy and offered no clues to the cause of death. From the remains that were examined, I would say that the person was stout when in life, because obviously, and it's awful saying this, but stout was the description used to describe Cora.
A rounder lady, yeah.
Exactly. People could have said, well, how long was this body there? It might not have been her, even though Spilsbury said the scar's hers, or he thinks it's hers. They still don't have the head and everything else. Anyway, the surgeons estimated that the body had been in the ground no more than a few months, 8 at the most, based on the fatty tissues having putrefied into a kind of soap, the technical term of which is, okay, I can't even pronounce this, a dip ochre?
Adipocere.
You know who would know? Spilsbury would know.
Spilsbury would know. So basically, the fatty tissues had putrefied into a kind of soap. That's all we need to know. We don't need to know the technical term.
Okay, so the amount of decay indicated how long that body had been there. And I mean, presumably another potential victim would be this supposed lodger, but now I'm saying it out loud. I'm like, was there even a lodger?
Was there even a lodger? Well, several sources that I've read said there was a lodger and that she was having an affair with him. One of the reports that I read did say that a member of the Ladies' Guild had actually said that it was known that she was having an affair, but whether she was or was not, there was a torso found in the cellar with a scar consistent with her hysterectomy. She's missing. He's lied about her disappearing, saying that she'd fled the country. But why would she not even write to her friends in the Ladies' Guild? Even if she was having an affair, why wouldn't she just write and say, I'm fine, I've left? Like, why would she let Crippen dictate her story? It just doesn't make sense. And the other thing is they owned that house. So at the very least, there's been a body found in their house in the time period that they lived there. Obviously, they fled. They were confronted by Scotland Yard. They fled, come back. Scotland Yard have investigated, found these remains, and they're convinced it's Cora. So now let's find out where they've gone. On investigating, they spoke to Dr. Crippen's associate, and he said Dr. Crippen contacted him and said he had to go away for a period of time, but could his associate purchase for him quickly clothes for a young boy? So what they did, they disguised Ethel as a boy and they fled to Brussels and then on to Antwerp as father and son, and they boarded the SS Montrose as father and son bound for Canada. So off they trot over to Canada. Now, they're obviously looking for these two. They put out a search for these people. Captain Kendall of the Montrose becomes suspicious of two of his passengers. Now, he was alerted by authorities via telegram that these two people had disappeared and they were on the lookout for them. Had it not been for the fact that they took first class, okay, and in first class on this ship, you got to mingle, or the captain.
The captain and stuff.
So the captain's like, these two are a bit weird. So let's go on to what the captain thought. So the captain sends a wireless communication from the Montrose to Scotland Yard. And he says, so on the 22nd of July, have strong suspicion that Crippen, London cellar murderer, and accomplice are amongst saloon passengers. Moustache has been shaved off, beard growing, accomplice dressed as a boy, voice and manner are undoubtedly a girl. Okay. So what happened then was Inspector Dew, our case crush, boards a faster boat, a faster ship. Okay. So he goes on this faster ship and intercepts the Montrose just as it's arriving on the shores in Canada. And would you like to see Crippen and Ethel handcuffed and removed from the ship?
Yes, I want to see her boy outfit. I'm dressed as a boy. I was wearing this shirt recently when I went out with my Brazilian family, my cousin and her husband. We went to Soho and we were at like the Admiral. Were we in the Admiral Duncan when this happened? I don't know. We met this hilarious guy called Fabio.
Oh, I love the name already.
I know. And he was like, oh, I'm so sorry, but I thought you were a lesbian at first. And I was like, is it the shirt? And he went, no, it's the face.
Oh my God. He said that to you?
I was like, I'll take it as a compliment, but like many wouldn't.
Oh
what does that even mean?
That is awful. Right, I'm going to show you the wanted poster of them, of Crippen and Ethel, and then I'm going to show you them being escorted off the ship. So they thought they got away with it. Right, here's the wanted poster that just went in all the newspapers at the time, absolutely everywhere.
Cool. I love an old-fashioned wanted poster. Murder and mutilation.
Yeah.
Portraits, descriptions, and specimen of handwriting of Hawley Harvey Crippen, alias Peter Crippen, alias Frankel, and Ethel Clara Le Neve, alias Mrs. Crippen and Neve. So that's, and then there's lots of text I can't
like
read.
Wanted for murder description. So it's like age 50, height 5'3".
What, Crippen?
Quite short. Yeah, I think that's what it is. But yeah, so all these kind of like, so this is obviously what went out to everyone, and then obviously confronted, and this is what they looked like when they were caught coming off the boat. Crippen basically is the one. Do you see the guy in the bowler hat at the front, the dark bowler hat? He's the one next to him, wrapped, covering his face up, and he's got handcuffs. So
looks like he's wearing a balaclava.
He looks like he's wearing a balaclava. I don't want anyone to see him. And then behind him, there's a gentleman with a coat over his arm. But then behind him, there's two ladies and a man. The shorter lady that you can just about see is Ethel. So she's covered herself up, and she's being escorted by a female off the ship as well.
All right. Okay. I can only see one, really.
So there's one female, and then next to that female, there's a shorter person.
Oh, right. Gotcha. She's kind of hiding herself away.
Yeah. So they're like hiding themselves because everyone, I mean, this was like a manhunt across the Atlantic, and everyone was interested in it.
I presume they would have known that they were being searched for, probably would have seen the papers, probably people would have heard people talking about it on the ship and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. It was big news. I'm going to show you one more picture and then no more pictures, I promise. This is professional picture. This is what he looked like.
I'm going to hate it. Yep, hate it.
Hate him.
I'm going to be cruel because he's a murderer, but he's got a mustache. The mustache is good, actually. But he's got these tiny little glasses that barely cover his eyeballs. And his eyes are tiny little peepers anyway. And his stupid little side sweep hair. And he's an idiot.
He's an absolute idiot.
I hate him.
We hate him. So they were handcuffed and removed from the ship. This, like the brides in the bath, it just gripped the nation because everyone's like wanting the next, the next thing and the next thing. I haven't really spoken about Crippen's first wife, so I'm going to talk to you about her now. And it might seem a bit disjointed, but...
No, I'm already seeing a link.
You're already seeing a link. So her name is Charlotte Belle. Before she was married, she was called Charlotte Belle, the first Mrs. Crippen. And long before London ever knew, or people knew Dr. Crippen, Hawley Harvey Crippen was married in America to his first wife, Charlotte Belle, who endured years of pressure under his authority as a physician. So there's lots of family letters and letters that she wrote and that historian Hallie Rubenhold has documented, that Charlotte confided her fear of being forced into surgery upon surgery. So she's written to her family saying that my husband is forcing me to have another surgery. So we know that at least one of those surgeries was an abortion. We don't know about any of the other ones, but he seems to, at the very least, likes practicing. Yeah, he likes the practicing, and it may well be like the unnecessary practice. Now, there's several documents that I've read that says that he says that what he attributes mania in women and hysteria to periods, and leading up to a woman having her period, she is hysterical and manic. And he thinks the removal of the ovaries and the female reproductive organs brings around sanity in women. So he very much sees this, and this is a field of medicine that he's throughout the years has pursued, and he's written papers that have been successful, some celebrated, because I think it's maybe an area that's not been like fully explored. Like he knows that women go through like periods and puberty and like maybe acne, and then they go through the menopause. But he's putting all of this down to insanity versus sanity, and so he basically, his poor wife, so she writes to a relative saying, my husband is about to force me to the knife yet again. So she's in this horrible relationship. So they've had a child, they've had a little boy. She's pregnant again. She's 33. And several relatives attest to this, and her little boy witnesses this. He has an argument with her and throws a really heavy book at her head, and it hits her in the base of her head, and she has this massive lump. And she dies of a stroke, no doubt brought on by this episode, but they couldn't prove it. She dies of a stroke, and he moves on, and 6 months later, as we know, he meets Cora and they begin dating. He sends the child away, as we know, to live with relatives, and he doesn't see that child again. He does. Cora does meet that child once, and she wants to bring that child up as her own, but he won't let her. He doesn't want anything to do with the little boy. And interestingly, this little boy lives to his 80s. And he was alive in the 60s. I think it was 1967. This man dies, and there's no evidence of him having a family. But lots of people say that even if he did, would he really want would he want that documented? Because all these people are going to be like, oh, Dr. Crippen has a grandson, and you don't want that legacy, do you? Like the Jack the Ripper legacy that, some people would love it. Oh, I'm the grandson of. So whether he continued the family line or not, this child lived until he was in his 80s, and he died in 1967.
I prefer the thought of him making a conscious decision not to continue the family legacy. There's also the possibility that he was just so fucked up by all of this shit that happened to him, being rejected by his dad, having his dad, if not directly murder the mom, he clearly was responsible for it. And surgery takes it out of your body. And so if this woman has had to go through surgery upon surgery and they're all unnecessary, she would have been in a much weaker state than if he just did not fucking perform all these surgeries on her.
Exactly.
And then on top of that, coming out that he's the murderer of his wife, he might not have been able to live a normal adult life after having all that. So
absolutely horrific. And he knows who his dad is because he met his dad with Cora, I think when he was 10 or something, and he and Cora were married for a long time. But it's just obviously tragic. Charlotte didn't have a nice life with him. She came from an Irish immigrant background, lived in America, but she came from a decent Catholic background, and they had some money. And it seems that maybe some of that money was used to support Crippen. But at the end of the day, he's a piece of shit. And I'm no doubt sure that he was responsible for his wife's death, but it wasn't proven. So let's move on to the trial. So the trial was in October 1910. Courtroom absolutely packed. Press all there, you can just imagine. And Ethel was also trialed at the same time, but in a separate, so she was trialed as well, but it was a separate courtroom. The Old Bailey did not take them long to decide that he was guilty. Ethel was acquitted because it was felt like she was coerced into doing this. And I'm not entirely sure that that's the case. Anyway, I'm going to tell you a bit more about Ethel as well. But basically, Spilsbury gave evidence that the remains were Cora's. The abdominal scars, what sealed the deal. It took less than half an hour for him to be found guilty. He was sentenced to hang. Ethel was trialed separately, was acquitted, though her reputation was absolutely destroyed. So on November the 23rd, 1910, at Pentonville Prison, Hawley Harvey Crippen was hung. He was 48 years old. He's not old. Not old. He appeared calm. So this is a quote from the archives, from a newspaper at the time. He appeared calm. The cap was placed over his head, and the drop broke all the bones in his neck. He's gone.
Yeah.
Ethel moves on with her life. She marries. Now, interestingly, a couple of facts about the case. Ethel had actually been pregnant by Crippen, but she had a miscarriage. While Cora was alive, she had become pregnant and wanted more of a relationship with Crippen, and that might have instigated the next step, which was obviously Cora's death. Getting rid of her. Other things in the case that were interesting was that the executioner committed suicide. may or may not be linked to Crippen. So I think it was his 254th execution, Crippen's, and shortly after that one, he committed suicide. I mean, it's obviously, if you kill that many people, it's going to have some sort of effect on you, isn't it? It's not going to be great, is it? Yeah, so that was obviously really bad. But how phenomenal are Cora's friends?
The ladies guild.
Ladies. And the thing is, it brought forensic science, that scar that identified her, that came to the forefront. That was like super, super interesting in the time. The fact that this was the first case where, text messages, like telegraphy, actually caught a killer.
So was that the message from the boat?
The message from the boat was what basically got them out there to if they'd landed on the shores, they would have just disappeared.
Yeah.
They would have just gone
into an area where they don't have any jurisdiction. Yeah.
Well, exactly. So because of these phenomenal women going to the place, and okay, Volcana, the strong woman, wasn't listened to the first time.
But they kept trying.
Yeah, the Nashies were. And then, and all that evidence that Chief Inspector Dew gathered, and there's so much that I didn't even go into. This is why it went into this like rabbit hole, warren, whatever search. I've got so many letters, so much correspondence that he gathered from all these people. And it was just like the brides in the bath, like Scotland Yard at the time, like was new. Like Scotland Yard, like this is like a really like young police force.
Looking at scars would have been a new thing if they'd ever done it before. It just seems obvious to us now, but only because it's been done before,
Yeah. And also like Scotland Yard, hopefully learning from experience that, someone comes forward and says, my friend's missing, please investigate, and they don't, they might have been able to catch him sooner, all that kind of stuff. The fact that they did so much work on the house to get the torso out is just horrible. But they don't know how she died. Now they found, and I didn't really talk about this because there's not super factual evidence, but they say that they did find some toxins in her body, and this particular drug was used as an aphrodisiac. So it could have been used as an aphrodisiac, and someone close to Crippen actually said that he gave his wife too much of this and she had died. Then he decided to chop up her body and, mutilate her.
No, I would suspect him, if he did use this drug, that he gave her too much on purpose. Like with the Marquis de Sade when he got in trouble, remember? Because he decided to have an orgy with some sex workers and give them Spanish fly without them knowing. And they got sick because he also gave it to them without their knowing and gave them far too much. So
exactly. So I'm sure this is what happened. He gave her something.
Or to mess with her mind and her mental ability in the moment so that he could do something else. Yeah.
Well, exactly. And they did say that this drug had been given over a significant period of time. And he's a medical professional. So who else has access in that building to that stuff? He's the prime suspect. And the other thing that was interesting is that Ethel Le Neve, some time later, confessed and said that Crippen did kill her. And that Crippen killed her because she was having an affair, and that she had a venereal disease, and that he couldn't stand that. And because of his profession and his standing in society, he didn't want it to get out that his wife was having an affair and that she had, a disease.
I call bullshit. I think either that's what Ethel wants to believe or that's what he's told her, because it doesn't sound like she's particularly coerced or whatever by him. But like, why would you go off with someone who, when he's done with a partner, he kills them? Do you know what I mean? You'd just be like, completely. Well, I better stay interesting to you because otherwise you'll murder me too. So I'm sure there was some element of fear or intimidation there.
I mean, whether she knew in the beginning that he had killed Belle, like Cora, I don't know. But at the police station, she admitted that they both lied. And she said, the same as him, that Cora was having an affair as they were, and that to save himself the humiliation, they both lied and said that she had like died in America and whatever.
I don't know, because he brought his fucking secretary to a ball in front of all of his peers. So it just feels like scandal isn't that much of a concern to him, really, or he wouldn't have done that.
And also, he's also in that moment, he might have thought, fuck you, Cora. So let's say she was having an affair, and let's say she had gone to America legitimately. He might have gone, fuck you. I'm going to give my secretary your jewels and your furs to wear. I don't give a shit. You've treated me badly. Or it could have been that he's killed her and he's just like, she's gone. I've now got the woman. Bearing in mind, Ethel knew him for 10 years. They'd known each other for a long time. She was the secretary for a long time.
And you said that she had been pregnant.
And she was pregnant by him. And she'd actually written to one of her relatives. This is where, like, we've got text messages today, or we phone up and we have a chat. But there's letters from the time, from the relatives, her writing to, I think it was her sister, saying that she was pregnant and she wanted a closer relationship, more of a relationship with Crippen.
Yeah.
So, but whatever happened, at the end of the day, we've got a dead woman, the scar matching Cora's, her no longer around, him fleeing with his girlfriend, him being arrested, his girlfriend Ethel admitting years later that he did do it. Seriously, the things that he put his first wife through, all of the operations and stuff. I mean, this is why I went into such a deep dive, because there's all these letters upon letters, which I could have gone through, but actually they're just going to add to the fact that we know that this is a man who likes using women's bodies to support his own medical views and to try and get ahead in the medical profession, and him as a guru, or the person that knows lots about gynecological issues and hysterectomies, and like he's using the women in his life to further his careers.
Yeah. And also it sounds like he enjoys the element of control over them as well, that this brings.
Definitely. But I would definitely recommend Hawley Rubenhall's book and the Scotland Yard Bloody History book, because there are so many cases in there that are just phenomenal, and they've just got letters from relatives and people they've interviewed, and it's just absolutely phenomenal looking at all this. Like I love the way that people spoke like back in the day, and like the way they speak.
Cute. Can you imagine?
I think your dad speaks like that. I love the way your dad speaks, because your dad speaks properly.
Yeah, so he speaks like very formally. His language is very formal because he learned it in a formal environment at school. So he doesn't speak like colloquial English. He speaks like Victorian English, doesn't he?
But it's the formation of the words. It's the formation of the words, and it's the same then. And I just love reading all that kind of stuff. So again, I'm sorry, it was another historical one, but I knew that,
love it.
Crippen, I thought Crippen, when I've heard Dr. Crippen, I'm thinking serial killer, and he may well have been, but loads of murders. I didn't realize it was just this, it was this one. But everyone knows about the name Crippen. They don't know about Belle. They don't know about Ethel. They don't know about poor Charlotte, his first wife, and what she had to endure. And, thank God that they stopped him when he did, because Ethel could have been another 100%. Victim. She's young. She's in her 20s. She's 27.
The minute she wasn't interesting to him for whatever reason, she would have definitely had surgeries performed on her if she hadn't already.
And like Cora was 10 years younger than him. So she was like 37, 38 when she died. Ethel's 27. Charlotte was 33, pregnant with the second child by him, obviously does not want to be with him. And what was this big argument they had, where he threw a massive book at her head?
Yeah. And I bet having that quite direct responsibility for her death, but not like actually a premeditated murder as such, I'm sure that desensitized him enough, along with his surgical background, like that ability to, having to compartmentalize and be able to dissect humans and operate on humans. I bet that desensitized him enough to be able to commit the murder of his wife. And once he's done that once, it'll be his go-to. It'll be his default resort. You know what I mean? Not his last resort.
When things don't work out with the latest one. I mean, he's obviously got an interest in opening women up and performing surgeries. Now, there was no suggestion that he performed the surgeries on Cora and Charlotte, but he was certainly present and he got those surgeries performed by other people. Now, it may well be that he did perform surgeries in Charlotte, but it said that she was forced to undergo operations. I have no doubt that he was there, but he was definitely involved in them, definitely involved in Cora's hysterectomy. He was there when that was performed. We've got the name of the other surgeon, but he was in the room.
And of course, he would have gone to another doctor and been like, she's got this, and this symptoms. Even if the wife is like, no, I don't. It would have been, he would have been like, see, she's hysterical. We've got to do this surgery. It would have just played into his narrative, right? Oh, what a absolute dickhead. Yeah.
But he gone now.
Good. Well done. That was amazing. I love the historical cases.
I'm going to do a different one next time. I'll try not to do so historical. I just love all the old stuff.
Yeah, because you see how times have changed, how things were there, how times have changed, how times have not changed in some sad cases, and like the developments, how they happened and stuff, like in forensic studies and in the changes in the laws and stuff like that. I love that one. Thank you very much. Do you want a palate cleanser?
Yes.
And it's my boyfriend.
It's your boyfriend. Oh,
yeah. Sam. So this is, some of you know that our favorite Sam, way back when, from series 1 even, soon became my favorite Sam and is now my partner. I don't like the term boyfriend when you're in your 40s. First, I'm going to show you.
Sam.
Well, Sam, I don't know how long this picture looks like. It's probably about 20 years ago, but I'm going to show you this adorable picture of Sam and Trevor.
Oh, is that Sam? Oh my God.
And that's Trevor.
Is that an American Bulldog?
I think it's a Bull Terrier, but he does say. So we've got that. And then.
Oh my God, Trev. That's so cute.
It's a picture of the tattoo done in American traditional black and white style. We'll post on the socials. And the banner says Trev. And it's cute. And he's got a lovely little expression on his face. So our favorite Sam says, let me just tell you what he said about this tattoo. This is my tattoo of my old best pal, Trevor, that I had in my early 20s. Trev was an English Bull Terrier. Think Bill Sikes' Bullseye in Oliver Twist. Bullseye! Bullseye! He had the characteristics of most English Bull Terriers. He was sweet-natured, playful, infinite hunger, and bully runs, like zoomies, but for the 7-stone clumsy beasts.
My God.
As is common with these dogs, he had hereditary hearing problems, but could hear a food wrapper being opened from half a mile away.
I love that. That's so funny, Sam.
Yeah. I think the banner was to say, only dog can judge me. This one definitely did. Usually when I left him unaccompanied for any amount of time, he ripped up 2 kitchen lino floors, countless cushions, and dismantled my oven door. To stop this, I started taking him to work with me. He chewed the inside of my van so much it eventually failed its MOT, including chewing the knob off my gear stick, which he eventually passed. Ouch. And then Sam says, I love that boy, Trevor, and I love you both too. Oh, Trevor.
So sweet.
I think we should dedicate this episode to Trevor.
Trevor, definitely.
That was an adorable tattoo. I just shared a reel on Instagram asking people for submissions. So please submit your tattoos for the Inquisition.
Definitely. I might get Kat to submit hers because she's just got this new absolutely phenomenal tattoo.
Yes, to the phenomenal ones, but I like the silly ones. Remember Wiggles Party Vulture?
Party Vulture, yeah.
Come on, we want more Wiggles. We want more Wiggles the Party Vultures. We had a croc tattoo last week. Come on, guys. I know you can do it. If you've got any terrible ones, before you get it covered up, let's immortalize it on the Inquisition. All right. Well, I love you and I love our sexy listeners.
You.
Love our sexy listeners. Do you?
Love them. Honestly, Dee, they've been coming into the shop and it's just so nice.
Do you remember at the beginning, I was like, do you love our sexy listeners? And you were like, I don't know them yet.
Well, now I don't know them. I do know them now. And we had this man come over from America and he'd listened to the podcast. He said he'd listened to a couple of episodes before I joined. And then he said that he really enjoyed it. And then he said that he was coming over to the UK and then he just was Googling bookshops in York. And then he found Criminally Good Books. And then he saw that I had joined the podcast that he'd been listening to. And he came up to me and he went, "Are you Isla?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I'm loving the podcast."
Oh,
and then he told me how
that
he'd been
guy.
listening. I can't remember his name. He told me how he'd been listening to it. And he bought like several true crime books from upstairs. And he's just like, "I'm so happy that I've come in."
All right. So this episode's dedicated to Trevor and that guy who's sadly
That guy.
the name we
But I
don't
didn't
remember.
get his name.
But
He was
if you're
lovely.
listening, you know who you are. And we love you
Yeah.
and our sexy listeners and each other. Love you.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Like this episode? Want more? Come visit me, Isla, at Criminally Good Books in the heart of York. We're an independent bookshop dedicated entirely to crime. From cosy mysteries to gritty thrillers, historical whodunits to juicy true crime. We've got signed editions, special gifts, and plenty of recommendations for your next obsession. We also host a bunch of awesome author events. Can't make it in person? Visit us online at criminallygoodbooks.co.uk.